Hi, David. Thank you.
Hello, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna wait till 5 past. Take us, Rodney. You just come in. We know when you're ready to go. You're ready to go? Sit down and relax. Good evening. I'm Councilor Caulfield. To my left is Councilor Rodney Elliott, and to my right is Councilor Frankie Dakota. First and foremost, on behalf of Mayor Milanazzo, the City Council, Manager Lynch, and the people of Lowell, thank you for your attendance this evening. We come together as a community this evening to try and find solutions and remedies to combat crime in our beloved city. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Caulfield,
Here?
Councilor Dakota,
Here.
Councilor Elliott,
Here.
3 present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. In attendance this evening, and we're very fortunate to have these people in attendance because their schedule is immense. We have federal, state, and local officials attending this meeting. Representing Congresswoman Nikki Songus is Brian Martin. Senator Eileen Donahue. Thank you, Senator. State Representatives Tom Golden will be here shortly. They just left Boston. State Representative David Nangle is here as well. And representing State Representative Kevin Murphy is Karen Monahan. We're very happy and fortunate to have District Attorney Jerry Leone in our midst. Thank you, District Attorney, for being here. Do we have anyone representing the court system? Okay. We have Mayor Milanazzo, Councilor Rita Mercier, Councilor Patrick Murphy, and I know there'll be other councilors coming. We also have from our school department, the superintendent of the schools, Chris Augusta Scott, along with school committee member John Leahy, Dave Conway, and Allison LaRaba. And from the Lowell plan, we have James Cook. I would now like to have City Manager Bernie Lynch, the manager of our city, say a few words and introduce the chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to you and to the members of the City Council for calling this meeting tonight, and for all of the elected and appointed individuals that are here for this important meeting, as well as members of the business community, members of the neighborhood organizations, and the nonprofits that we have in the city. I just have a few opening remarks that I just want to say before turning it over to the chief and District Attorney Jerry Leone for a presentation. But essentially what I guess I'd like to say is that clearly we've been shocked over the last couple of weeks with the several incidents of crime that have occurred in the city that have really highlighted the fact that our work is not yet done. I think we all know that the city of Lowell has gone through some very difficult times in the past where crime rates have been very high. We've had periods of some violent crime. You know, I think every community goes through these periods, and we've made great strides over the last several years in bringing that crime rate down and making the city much safer and one in which people can feel comfortable living in their neighborhoods and you know, coming in to visit us here in the city. But as I said, the work isn't quite done. We have incidents that have continued to occur, and I think it's important that this meeting be held tonight, and you'll hear the actions that the police department is going to take to take up some proactive measures to reverse the trends that we're seeing over the last few weeks and actually going back into last year a little bit. I have, as you know, indicated that I will be coming to the City Council next week with a plan to transfer $100,000 of free cash to the police department, and you'll hear tonight the police chief talk about how that money is going to be used. I think it's important, though, to remember that the city government can't do this alone, and I think the fact that we have so many different people here from the Congresswoman's office, and I met with Brian Martin earlier today, as well as Ashley O'Neill from Senator Kerry's office to talk about resources that might be available at the federal level. We have certainly the state delegation that we depend upon for their support and their assistance. Certainly District Attorney Jerry Leone, who's been a regular participant in our monthly meetings that we have to talk about youth violence and youth development issues here in the city. Our neighborhood organizations, the business community. Jim Cook has already contacted me and asked me how the Lowell plan can assist in this effort. It's really all about the partnerships that we have here in the city and the sense of community and working together. And I think that's how we're going to be successful. I think it's important that people know that we do this work, that we recognize problems when they occur, and we act quickly and swiftly to ensure that you know, we stop the problems as quickly as we can. So at this point, again, I want to thank you and the members of the council for calling the meeting and giving us an opportunity to make this presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to Police Superintendent Ken LaValle.
Thank you. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I plan to make a presentation this evening to discuss efforts of the Lowell Police Department to deal with these issues and to highlight some of the concerns that I have. But I can tell you that there is one phone call I dread. And that phone call takes place typically at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And that phone call that I received on New Year's morning at 2 a.m. from Captain Webb, who was here with us this evening, telling me that 8 people had been shot in the city of Lowell. One incident, and one young lady who was deceased, was obviously very troubling and disturbing for me to hear. When these crimes occur, not only do I take these issues seriously and personally, every member of the Lowell Police Department does as well. I know that the officers who were on the scene that night or that morning were very disturbed by what they saw. When I arrived and spoke to the officers that day at the scene, it was obviously troubling to them, and it was difficult for me to comprehend why 2 young men would resolve their differences by resorting to violence in such a horrific way, to come back to a party after they had been asked to leave with firearms and opening fire on young children from 15 to 20 years of age. It's just very difficult for me to comprehend, and probably every person in this room. But I think when that occurred, and then the incidents that occurred after that, including the incident on Dublin Street where a number of firearms were stolen and now were distributed, not only here in Lowell but other locations as well. And then we had 2 other incidents recently where a woman was shot in the back Central Street neighborhood, and then another one recently on Cabot Street. There was an individual who was shot at. It just highlighted the fact that we need to do more, as much as we can, to deal with these issues. And it's not always easy. It's often a challenge. But that's what the Lowell Police Department intends to do. And that is my commitment to you tonight. So what I'd like to do is give you an overview, a kind of a synopsis of where we are with crime in 2009 versus 2010. As you can see, there is no change in homicide in the city from 2009 to 2010. There were a total of 6 victims each year. So that has not gone up dramatically. There was a slight decrease in robberies, 0.5%, which computes to 1 robbery, 1 less robbery in 2010 versus 2009. A decrease in larceny by 5% and vandalism by 3%. But there was an increase in aggravated assaults by 9% and burglary by 8%. So we did see a rise in those particular crimes. What I've done in this particular chart is try to highlight to you problematic locations within the city of Lowell, neighborhoods that we know where crimes are occurring. And you see the comparison from year to year, 2009 to 2010. And if you look at the number of robberies, you can see the Acre neighborhood, this Lower Centerville neighborhood predominantly, and the Lower Highlands were the areas where most of the robberies took place in 2010. If you look at aggravated assaults, once again in the hundreds, the Acre, Lower Centerville, and the Lower Highlands. And then as we look at robberies, once again, the theme is the same, 193 in Centerville, 99 in the Lower Highlands, and the Acre had 149. So that were the highest numbers right there. So we know that there are neighborhoods and there are areas that need our attention more than others, and that is our plan tonight. If you look at the crime comparisons by month, you can see that pretty much 2009 and 2010 were pretty consistent with the exception of 1 month, the month of May. In the month of May, there appeared to be a spike in the types of crimes we just talked about in the city of Lowell. And that's not atypical for the springtime. When the warmer weather arrives, more people tend to be on the streets, and then we have occasionally a spike in crime. So obviously, we need to be prepared for that this year. What is the current state of the Lowell Police Department? I can tell you that there has been some discussion about the staffing levels in the Lowell Police Department, and I'm well aware of it. Since I've been chief, we have faced a very serious budget crisis in this community and many other communities as well, obviously. So as a result of that budget crisis, we have had significant numbers of personnel leave the department. Our staffing level from when I became chief 3 fiscal years ago was 244. Now it's at 228. But that 228, since the fiscal year began, 10 more officers have left the Lowell Police Department, either by retiring or by resigning. 16 currently are on injury leave. Those officers, I can tell you, were involved in incidents where they were injured, predominantly in making arrests, dealing with violent individuals, doing a very dangerous job, and as a result of that, they received injuries during their job. One officer on a long-term sick leave and another one on military deployment. If you take that all into account, right now in the city of Lowell, we have 200 police officers to patrol or to work in the city, all the way from me down to the newest patrolman. Typically, a city of our size in the Northeast has 2.8 police officers per 1,000. So if you looked at the city of Lowell, a city over 100,000, we should have approximately 280 sworn personnel. At one time, we did indeed have 260 sworn personnel in the Lowell Police Department. That was during the height of the Clinton administration. The federal funding was robust. There was a lot of community policing money out there, and certainly the city of Lowell took advantage of it. But unfortunately, those days are long gone. Despite the fewer numbers of officers in the Lowell Police Department, our arrests went up by 4% last year over 2009. 5,722 people were arrested by the Lowell Police Department in 2010 for various violations of the law. Obviously, they range from serious crimes like murder and rape and robbery, all the way down to more less serious violations. But I will tell you that it appears to me that our staffing levels have definitely impacted our ability to be more proactive, and that's highlighted by the fact that CAD entries are down by 3%. And when I say a CAD entry, that stands for computer-assisted dispatch. Officers who are on the street calling in warrant checks, conducting motor vehicle stops, doing business checks, those have decreased by 3%. I think the proactive response has become problematic for us, and we're more becoming a reactive police agency as a result of these budget cuts. In addition to the decreasing staff, we've also had to reduce our overtime compensation, which also includes special events money and comp time allocations. 3 fiscal years ago, it totaled $960,000. This fiscal year, it's $522,000. It's almost been cut in half. We need that overtime to maintain safe levels of police officers on the street, not only for the citizens of this community, but also for the officers themselves. We need dispatchers in 911. We need investigative personnel to apprehend criminals, conduct investigations when crimes occur. Oftentimes, these investigations go on for hours and hours and hours. We also have special events, polling locations that we have to cover, and a multitude of other things that require overtime use. But that money has been decreased dramatically because of our budget crisis. We do have grant funding, and I will get into that in a minute, but we utilize that grant funding to be more specific to problem locations, problem timeframes, and we can be much more flexible with that money, and we can hire officers on 4-hour blocks as opposed to 8-hour blocks, and we can put them in the high-crime areas and neighborhoods where we're having issues. An example of some of those grants that we aggressively seek and have received include $330,000 on the hotspots, received from 2007 to 2010. That was directed towards, or $111,000 worth of that was directed towards patrol overtime. $450,000 for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, under a Lowell Violence Reduction Fund that gave us $85,000 directed to patrol. We just received a $300,000 smart policing grant, one of 6 police departments in the country to receive those funds. $106,000 will be utilized for overtime for directed patrols in specific locations that need our attention, problem solving and drug deterrence. And then we have $350,000 in Shannon grant funds, which is utilized for anti-gang and youth violence initiatives. We share that money with a number of organizations in the city, including UTEC, but $36,000 is meant for anti-gang overtime and youth violence overtime. We talked about gun violence at the last meeting that I appeared before the City Council Public Safety Subcommittee, and I can tell you that I just want to reiterate that half of this gun violence occurs between 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. in the city. Majority of the activity occurs on weekends. 45% of all the firearm incidents are gang or drug-related. Guns are coming into this city from 2 primary sources. And we talked about this before. Out-of-state purchases or straw purchases. These gangbangers, drug dealers, will send a purchaser out of state. Someone who can purchase a firearm legally in a state that has less than stringent firearms regulations, because Massachusetts has very stringent firearms laws. That purchaser will come back to Lowell with a gun that they bought in another state and then turn it over to the criminal person who indeed intends to use that for criminal enterprise. They also come from house breaks. A perfect example of that has just occurred here in Lowell at 9 Dublin Street. And these house breaks are occurring across the state in many communities. Houses are being broken into and firearms in those houses are being stolen and are distributed in an underground market, a black market of gun distributors. Most of the people we've arrested for violent violations of the law involving firearms in the city come from Lowell. And the neighborhoods most affected, indeed, of course, include the Acre, the Lower Highlands, and Centerville. The recent events, New Year's Eve, the homicide, the 8 people shot, the factors involved there, underage drinking. Underage drinking has really been one of my initiatives within the Lowell Police Department, keeping alcohol out of the hands of people under the age of 21. We have had a number of operations to prevent that from happening. The consequences can be tragic. People resort to violence, they get into cars, they could be injured or killed in a car crash. There are a number of reasons why young people shouldn't be allowed to have alcohol. That happened that night. These young men also had access to firearms. They used those firearms with no concern for human life. They have a propensity for violent conflict resolution. They have no skills. They couldn't deal with the fact that they were asked to leave this party, and they responded with anger and violence, because that's the only way they knew how to do it. They were going to show those people in that room who was boss. As you know, we've arrested 2 individuals. Those arrests were made almost immediately, within 3 hours. That was due in large part to the great work of the Lowell Police Department, patrol and detective personnel who were on the scene, in conjunction with the Massachusetts State Police detectives assigned to the CPAC unit, and of course, the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, who, by the way, is always in Lowell, and I'm sure DA Leone will talk about that. But every time there is a major incident in this city, members of the DA staff are here. The stolen firearms from Dublin Street. 2 individuals have been arrested. To date, we've recovered 7 of those 40 guns, which means 33 firearms are still on the streets of the Commonwealth, and obviously are very much a danger to the citizens of this community and the law enforcement officers who work here. Then I mentioned the 2 non-fatal shootings. Central Street, honestly, an investigation we have no leads on at this time. And Cabot Street, where a gentleman who was shot at in an automobile but was not hit. That investigation is ongoing as well. Strategies. We plan to use overtime money in hotspot areas. The money that we hope to get through the city manager's office put into our overtime account will be used specifically to deal with hotspot locations and timeframes. And we know where they are, when they are. We have that information due to our crime analysis capabilities, which are very, very significant. We're going to continue to partner with federal and state law enforcement agencies. As a matter of fact, the Massachusetts State Police has already been in the city on Friday night, worked with our officers in some high crime areas. 9 arrests were made. They have a CAT team, it stands for Community Assistance Team. They are going to be here working with us on a regular basis. We'll continue to, use motor vehicle stops to ensure the safety of our citizens. We'll prioritize serious and violent offenders with our warrant apprehension unit. And we'll deploy our community response team to the hotspot locations to suppress some of the criminal activity that's taking place. These are strategies we've used before, but we can certainly increase our presence with this extra money, which will be very, very helpful. We'll continue to utilize the grant funds I've already spoken about to saturate these hotspot locations. And it's also very important for us to continue to partner with the nonprofit service organizations in the city, such as UTEC, the Lowell Boys and Girls Clubs, and so many others, which have been very helpful in dealing with this rise in youth violence in the city. I'd like to consider, in having conversation with the district attorney, talk about the potential for reaching out to the community and obtaining unwanted guns. If people have firearms in their homes they don't want to have anymore, could we somehow come up with a plan to get those guns from the homes turned into the police department, so at least they're off the street and not vulnerable to a house break? So if someone does want to break into someone's house, a gun won't be in that location. That's something I'm just going to explore with the district attorney and see if we can come up with a plan to do that in a proper way, because there are legal ramifications. One of them being, if you have someone turn a firearm in and we ask that, they have some, we exonerate them from any, and then we find out the firearm was used in a serious crime, then we have a problem. Our crime analysis unit, as I said, will be used to strategically deploy our resources to prevent future violence. We're going to implement that smart policing grant, which I spoke about, to combat street-level drug crime. And I continue to insist that the drug situation is very problematic for us and continues to really cause a lot of the crime in the city, if not most of it. We'll continue to partner with the FBI, the ATF, and the DEA on long-term investigations, and as you know, it's been highly publicized that several long-term investigations resulted in the seizure of multiple firearms from the city and also the arrest of numerous people involved in firearms trafficking. And of course, we'll continue to use technological solutions for gun crime as best we can. There were some suggestions made at the last public safety subcommittee meeting about ShotSpotter and some of the others, and some of these things we looked at were cost prohibitive. Unfortunately, so we will have to look at other avenues for solutions to these problems. So we do have, we think, a plan in place that will basically utilize uniformed officers to go into neighborhoods where we know there are problems at those specific times and, put a very heavy presence into the neighborhoods. We have dealt with a very significant problem with our funding, as you know. For example, today I had a conversation with Mr. Cook from the Lowell plan and the manager about possibly getting funds from the Lowell plan to refurbish the mobile command post that we haven't been able to use in a number of years because it's just fallen into disrepair and it's very, very cost prohibitive to repair. And organizations like the Lowell plan, I'm very happy to say, will potentially step up to the plate and offer funding to get that van repaired and get it back on the street. So I think that's a very good sign, and I think it shows that the people in this community, collaboratively, collectively, will work to deal with this problem. And I think it's been said, Council, that it just cannot be solved with a police effort. That has to be a community effort. And I know that the people in this room tonight feel that way as well. And that so many people are here, and I'm so grateful to them. And I always say, when I go to these community meetings, this city is great because of the people who are here tonight and people like them. And I'm so grateful for them being here tonight. So thank you, and that's all I have tonight to report on.
Thank you, Chief, for an excellent presentation. And before I recognize District Attorney Jerry Leone, I want to thank Brian Martin for being here, representing Nikki Songus, Congresswoman for the 5th Congressional District. And I neglected to recognize and thank the neighborhood leaders in our city, who many are here this evening. You are the eyes, the ears, everyone in the city, and I want to thank you for your dedication and your loyalty. And the Chief just touched on, this is a good city. It is a good city. It's a good city with many, many good people. We have 2 fine universities, 2 excellent hospitals. We have many entertainment venues, the Songus Arena, the Lasher Ballpark. We have $270 million worth of new schools. We're proud of the city. We're proud of this city, and we're proud of the business community who work together with Manager Lynch, the City Council, and the state as well, to make the city what it is. And it is a good city. 0.4% of the population is causing havoc and problems in the city. 0.4%. And everyone has to obey the law. Everyone. Even a member of a gang, they have to obey the law. Mr. District Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to recognize Representative Golden, who's joined us now with Representative Nangle since we started. I want to thank everybody for being here, every member of this community for being here. It's important, as my friend Ken LaValle said, to come together as a community. I want to recognize Tom O'Reilly and Kara Kreisel, the Chief and Deputy Chief of the Lowell region of my office, for being here with me. And I'm proud to sit with Ken LaValle, the Superintendent-in-Chief of this city and my friend. By way of introduction, and just let me say this to put things in perspective regarding what I'm about to say. I've been the district attorney here for 4 years in Middlesex County. I've been a prosecutor my entire 20-year career. My career has not been limited to Middlesex County. I prosecuted in Boston before I came to Middlesex County. I've been the chief of the statewide criminal bureau at the Attorney General's office, so I've seen every corner of the state. I've also been the first assistant U.S. attorney, so I've seen every corner of the state and federal perspective. I've seen the cities as bad as they can get. I say that by way of introduction. I also represent 54 towns and cities across Middlesex County as the Chief Law Enforcement Legal Officer. In every one of those jobs that I've had, I realize there's 2 approaches. There's a front end and a back end. The back end is what we're normally known for as police departments and DA's offices, which is investigation and prosecution. But the front end is intervention and prevention through education and training, and that's critical. And I can tell you this, we do it as well in Lowell as anywhere I've seen across the state, and I'm going to elaborate about that in a moment. In Middlesex County, there are several cities. There are several cities the size of Lowell. This is an urban area. It's close to some very bad areas. When people try to lump the 3 L's together, I stop them in their tracks when they talk about Lowell, Lawrence, and Lynn. I say, no, let me tell you a lot of reasons why Lowell is far different than those other cities. But let me just tell you one statistic I got from my friend who's the pastor, Paul O'Brien on Broadway in Lawrence. Every year, Lowell High School graduates over 90% of the kids that go to that school. Lawrence graduates 38%. Right there, I can tell you, is the genesis for a lot of the problems in any major urban area. And I'll elaborate on that in a moment as well. The city should be proud of its eclectic population in the neighborhoods, but there are several policing challenges across this city and some target-rich environments that the chief has talked about, in which we'll continue to focus. Now, the city should be troubled by serious and violent incidents that have occurred in the first 2 weeks of this year. It should trouble anybody. However, those incidents were random, they were unconnected, and to a large degree unpredictable. Now, that's not to say anything by way of excuse, but I can say this, based upon my experience across this state. The things that we're seeing, although troubling, are not unique to Lowell. In fact, Lowell is a special place, and Lowell is doing a lot of terrific and wonderful things across this city, and I'm proud to be a part of many of those initiatives. The Lowell Youth Development Committee, which started 5 years ago, has met every month. 6 months prior to my being district attorney, they started meeting. We have met together every month, which means we've met together 50 times. And we've grown the committee's membership. And what we talk about are the ways to keep this city safe. And I can tell you, not in one of the other 53 towns and cities in Middlesex County does that happen. The city manager chairs the meeting. Myself and the chief go, and we haven't missed one meeting. The schools are represented by the superintendent and other members of her school system, including the principal. There are various community members in that meeting, members of the police department and the district attorney's office. I can tell you, there is no comprehensive meeting like that anywhere else in Middlesex County. And this is a creative and progressive county in how we deal with public safety. Community-based justice and Middlesex Partnerships for Youth. Those are two ways that we combat youth violence. We meet every Friday morning over in the DA's office with the police department, the schools, probation, various members of our middle schools and high schools to talk about how to keep kids out of trouble and keep them out of the system. The Middlesex Partnerships for Youth is a nonprofit organization. I chair the board of that nonprofit organization. Lowell belongs to that organization, which means they get in-service trainings free of charge because the superintendent has forethought and is creative and progressive and understands that the way we attack problems of public safety is on the front end. It's our kids, our most important resource. UTEC, we work hand in glove with UTEC. They're there the first Monday of every month with the city manager, with myself, with Chief LaValle. We talk about kids and how to stem the tide of violence, how to stem this trend that the chief has talked about, which is young people possessing weapons and resolving conflict through the use of weapons. This isn't Lowell-centric. This is a national trend that everyone is trying to stem. And Lowell is doing more than any city I know to combat the problem. When I sit with my colleague DAs once a month, there are 10 other DAs in this state. Of course, Middlesex is a quarter of the population. We're one of the largest counties in the country. But when I sit with my colleagues, I hear about Brockton. I hear about Fall River in New Bedford. I hear about Springfield. I hear about Boston, Holyoke, Worcester, Fitchburg, and Lawrence. We don't talk about Lowell as it relates to those other cities. We don't talk about Lowell as it relates to the problems in those other cities. We're not an analog. In Lowell, what we talk about are the things we're doing to keep Lowell the way it is and to continue to develop the way that it has been. This is the good news, because too often times when serious violent offenses occur, especially when they occur in a short period of time, we tend to look, be disconcerted, be troubled, and focus on what we might not be doing right. Well, that's a time when I focus on what we are doing right. There are other things we can do, and the chief has laid them out for all of us here tonight. And we'll continue to work to develop and continue to do things better in any way that we can. But I can't stress enough all the good things that are going on in this city. Safety First is an operational meeting. I talk about intervention and prevention in the front end. Well, Safety First is a group of very committed and dedicated members of the Lowell Police Department who meet with members in my office. And they talk about those people that the chief referred to as the key players. As you refer to, Mr. Chairman, as a very small percentage of people who are causing life to be miserable for some in and around our community and in this city. And we'll continue to focus on those people. We'll bring our federal partners to bear on that. And based upon the partnerships that the chief and I have, there's no shortage, no paucity of partners that we can bring to bear on this problem. But I can tell you, when we talk to our colleagues about the issues here, they spend their time in other communities in other cities. I'll tell you why. Because they, just like I do, have the confidence in the leadership that exists in this city. We're thought of as a place that doesn't need the extra resources that they bring to bear in some of these other cities. Now, of course, the $100,000 that will be placed in the Lowell budget to use is going to be extremely helpful. Every dollar that we can get, every person that we can put on the street on behalf of the police department is going to be extremely helpful. They may be down 10 to 15% of their officers, but they've increased arrests of 4%, despite the fact that they've been reduced in personnel. I raise all of this to give some perspective to what we're talking about tonight, not to minimize the troubling issues that exist here, but to say that in Lowell, I can tell you from my perspective, we are doing everything that we possibly can, and we're doing more than most I have seen in the course of my career to stem the tide of violence and to work on the front end. Now, we've got a lot of time for discourse tonight, and I think question and answer is extremely important.
Yes.
I brought with me something, though, that I want to leave with you, Mr. Chairman, and leave with the council. And it's a book called Fixing Broken Windows. It's a book that many of us in law enforcement and public safety have read. And what it does, it talks about restoring order and reducing crime in our communities. And I just want to read a quote, because where the chief left off, I want to leave off. And it's talking about community. In the front of the book, there's a quote, and it's an old quote. Sir Robert Peel was the founder of the London Metropolitan Police in 1829. And what he said was this: "The police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public, and that the public are the police. The police are the only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare." It's about a community, about all of us coming together, staying together and working together, not pointing fingers. It's about coming together as a community to make this city even greater than it is now. I thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm open for questions, and I'll remain with my friend, the Commissioner, the Superintendent-in-Chief.
Thank you, Mr. District Attorney. I just want to make it clear that this subcommittee or the council is not pointing fingers at the Lowell Police Department or the District Attorney, because we are very fortunate to have, Mr. District Attorney, you at the helm as being the lead prosecutor in Middlesex County. We applaud you. And we applaud Chief LaValle, the men and women of the police department, for doing an incredible job fighting crime everywhere. Mr. District Attorney, I think the leading question I think many residents have in the city, especially the people who are here, is the accessibility to guns and what the law enforcement arrest those people. But what happens to them when they get into the courts? It seems as though they are not addressed in the proper way. And I just feel strongly, anyone arrested with an illegal handgun, especially that handgun that the serial numbers are filed off of, especially a sawed-off shotgun, those individuals should be incarcerated and off the street. Because if they're not taken off the street, they're laughing at us. Those hoodlums are laughing at us because nothing is happening to them. And that's why I think many of the residents are frustrated and aggravated about that. And I think, personally, I'd like to see them incarcerated. If they're carrying an illegal handgun, You know, show them the punishment. And why isn't that happening?
Well, I think that's a huge misconception, that something isn't happening. We prioritize gun cases in this city and throughout Middlesex County. When the Lowell Police Department does what they usually do, which is a great job of identifying people who carry guns and arresting them, we then prosecute them to the greatest extent that we can. And oftentimes, people don't see what happens on the back end of the criminal justice system, which is they do go to jail. It's an 18-month mandatory commitment for someone who's found to be carrying a gun, and that happens. It happens fairly frequently. What sometimes frustrates members of the community is when someone is arrested, they're arraigned, we make a recommendation that they be held on bail, and the courts sometimes don't accede to our wishes. We can't control that other than what we can control in the court system. The arrests are made, defendants are turned over, we make recommendations to the court. We can't tell the court what to do, we can only make recommendations. Oftentimes, the court doesn't agree with our recommendations. I can tell you this, though, there has been a sea change at the district court in Lowell. For several years, and I grew up here as a prosecutor, historically we've been frustrated by the inability to hold people in that district court who we consider to be serious violent offenders. But there's a new judiciary in that building. There are 3 new judges in that building, judges who we think more appreciate what we're trying to do by way of stemming the tide of violence in a city like Lowell. So we do anticipate and we're confident that the recommendations that we make to the court will be better received. We can't push any harder than we do now as a district attorney's office. However, we don't sentence people. We investigate in connection with the police department, we charge people, and we prosecute them. But we don't hold people on bail and we don't sentence them. That is for the court, and we can only recommend stringently.
Thank you, Mr. DA. And before I recognize my colleague, Councilor Frankie Dakota, the word frustrating has been mentioned many, many times. And you know what's very frustrating is to the Lowell police officers to bring someone down to the courts, and 9 out of 10 times, by the time the police officer gets back to the police department, that individual is out in the street, and that's frustrating. Well,
we share in that frustration. Right. And again, we have no control over that other than to make the most stringent recommendation that we can to a court, which sometimes places defendants' rights over victims' rights. And I can tell you, you've got the highest court in this state continually justify non-law enforcement decisions by saying that the Mass Constitution affords defendants' rights greater than the United States Constitution. It starts from the top on down in the courts and the judiciary.
Thank you. Counselor?
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you being here. And although we're very devastated by the tragedy of the deaths, we are heartened by both Chief LaValle's presentation and your presentation and the hard work that you do, so I appreciate that. And particularly for all the neighborhood groups, I received some emails from the neighborhood groups who wanted to come here not to complain, but to offer their assistance so that they can help with this front-end strategy that you were talking about. So I guess I would like you to tell me, and also Chief LaValle, if you can, how we and how the neighborhood groups here can help with this front-end strategy.
Well, first of all, I was remiss in not recognizing my staff that's here this evening, and there are many members of the Lowell Police Department here who I really admire and really am very, very grateful to for the fine work they do, which you alluded to, Councilor Caulfield, earlier. So thank you for being here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, I attended the Upper Highlands neighborhood group meeting last night, and I walked into that room and it was packed. And all those people are so sincere, so dedicated to their neighborhoods, and I know everybody who's here tonight who represent neighborhoods feel the same way. And there's strength in numbers. You know, there is strength in having those people, those individuals, look at what we presented tonight and see where the deficits are in the Lowell Police Department in terms of manpower, in terms of funding, and say, we need to increase, we need to stabilize, we need to consider more options for our police department to deal with these particular issues. So the people who are impacted in the neighborhoods, and I understand and appreciate the fact that our fiscal crisis is very real and that we have very serious concerns, but we are seeing, I believe, potentially what the result is of having these shortcomings within our own law enforcement agency here within the community, and as a result of that, we're seeing some of these high-profile incidents. Now, granted, I don't think we've seen a very, very significant rise in crime from 2009 to 2010. But when these incidents take place, they are very troubling, and the impression people have of this city is unfortunately not very good, and that's what we try to prevent. And we don't want the city of Lowell to be considered to be an unsafe community, or a city where people don't want to live or work or come to enjoy themselves at entertainment venues and at the ballpark. So we need to understand that that is very, very important, in my opinion. And I think that another thing the neighborhood groups can do and the citizens of this city is to be the eyes and ears of the police department, as the district attorney alluded to. The community is the police, and the police is the community. So they need to know that we are there at a moment's notice to respond to any call of suspicious activity they see. And I think everything can be summed up in the next comment that I'm about to make. Last night, a woman asked me, there was a man who was running through her neighborhood, who apparently was involved in an attempted housebreak in that neighborhood. And she said, "Was he arrested, Chief?" And I said, "Of course he was." And she goes, "Gee, that's surprising, because I saw him walking around the neighborhood the next day." So that same frustration, that same confusion, she didn't even think the man had been arrested. The man had been arrested and charged with the appropriate crime, and he has a lengthy record, but was in court and released and out walking in the same neighborhood the next day, and that caused that woman some confusion. She couldn't understand why. She thought the man had been arrested, and he was. So those are the types of things people need to do. That man was arrested because the people in the neighborhood recognized that he was about to break into a house, called the police, and he was indeed apprehended. So those are some of the things I have in mind.
And could I just follow up on what Chief Lavelli said about arrests and releases? The Massachusetts law on bail, the law states that the number one factor that the court has to consider, the number one factor is whether or not a defendant will reappear in court. They can consider a lot of other factors, including their record. But if that judge finds that they have reason to believe that person will reappear in court, the Massachusetts law dictates that he be released on personal recognizance. These are the laws that we deal with, not only the police in investigating and arresting, but prosecutors and prosecuting.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
If I may, just following up on a couple of your question, Councilor Dakota, and also what the district attorney and the superintendent have said in terms of what how the community can help. I think certainly we've already talked about the community, the neighborhood organizations, the people of the city being our eyes and ears, certainly with regards to crime, but also with, particularly relevant to the book that the district attorney handed over to you, Chairman, Fixing Broken Windows. Other issues that arise in the neighborhood that indicate some level of disinvestment, some level of blight. And we've been certainly working with our neighborhood organizations on our code enforcement. When we see deterioration of neighborhoods, oftentimes the first step is the violation of our codes, and so that allows us then to get out there with our new code enforcement efforts. And Kendra Amaral, our Deputy Director of Planning and Development, is here tonight as well. We work closely with the police and getting out into those neighborhoods, tracking down those code enforcement issues, and then and working with the police department to make sure that the neighborhoods are stabilized. But beyond the eyes and ears part of it, I think also, and I had a discussion yesterday with Ty Emily Dixon from the Lower Highland Neighborhood Organization. I think too that we need the citizens to be our voice. Oftentimes, the concern is nothing seems to be happening, when in reality, as the district attorney quite eloquently described, there's a lot happening here in the city to make the city safe and to try to make it even safer. And we need the neighborhood organizations, we need the citizens to really be our voice in spreading that word, spreading the word that the police department is out there, that they're working hard, and that there are efforts underway. These aren't problems that are being ignored in any way. So I think the eyes, the ears, and the voice are very important, and it is really a partnership effort. It is a community effort.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I would now open...
Mr. Chairman, could I just add something to what the city manager said, and this goes to something Councilor Dakota indicated. There are a lot of community groups here. A standing offer for myself, the city manager, and the superintendent in chief to join our Lowell Youth Development Commission, which meets the first Monday of every month. We meet over at MCC. We would love for them to be involved, to have their voice heard on that committee, because it's made up of various components of the community here. So we would like that. If they would make themselves known to us, I'm sure the chief will involve them in that.
We plan on actually having a larger meeting to invite many community groups up. I believe we planned that for April, is that correct?
April 4th, I think.
April 4th, so we certainly would invite members of the council, community organizations, and others to join us and see exactly the work that's being done.
Thank you, Chief. We are very fortunate to have in our city the Lowell delegation and Congresswoman Nikki Songus as well. And if any members of those officers would like to speak, Lowell delegation, the state representative, Senator.
Oh, thank you, Councilor Caulfield, and I want to thank all of you here tonight for inviting us to come and hear about the issues that we're all so aware of here in the city of Lowell. I can't help but sit here and think as I look around the room, and Councilor Caulfield, you were here 15 years ago, and Councilor Rita Mercier when we first ran, and the city was facing very serious crime issues back then, and no matter what neighborhood group we went to, we heard it over and over again, and as has been pointed out by Superintendent LaValle, we did take advantage of funds from the federal government and put 100 police officers on the street, and it made a big difference. But that wasn't the only thing that made the difference. It was community groups, the neighborhood groups. Anne-Marie Page is here, and she was here 15 years ago as well. Everybody pitched in, and everybody came to the table and worked together. And I think that is the difference that set the partnerships that we've heard about that set Lowell apart and continue to set the pace and set Lowell apart. And so, you know, when we are facing this crisis here in terms of the hot spots that the superintendent has described, it does require everybody, and that's what we've heard here tonight. And I know my colleagues in the state government and Representative Golden and Representative Nangle, and I'm sure they would echo in and want to say we will do everything we can on our part to assist in this endeavor. I did have the opportunity to speak with the executive office, the Secretary Heffernan this afternoon. She's aware of the situation here. I know the state police have been working cooperatively with the superintendent, with the district attorney's office on this, and will continue to work hand in hand and bring whatever resources they can to the table. And in addition, wants to meet with the Lowell delegation to bring us up to date as to everything they can offer to us. And again, you know, anything that I think all pieces, there's no one magic solution. There's no magic wand, but I do think all of the people putting in together, coming to the table and working together are going to make a big difference in getting back to where we all want to be. And that is to make sure people are safe in the streets, safe in their homes, safe sending their kids to school, just the basic rights that, you know, you all have worked so hard to provide the city with, and we will continue to work together. So the information, as I sit here tonight, and I know that we sit here, we'll take back to the State House, work hand in hand with the Public Safety Secretary, and whatever resources can be brought here to the city of Lowell, we're going to do our darndest to get them here.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. Brian Martin, representing Tom of David, part of our Lowell delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just very briefly, as the chief has put out here and talked about the Shannon Fund grants, and that's something that the House colleagues from Lowell were just talking about recently. Unfortunately, as we all are well aware of the sign of the times and the budget cuts that are going on statewide, so unfortunately, we have seen a 60% decrease in the Shannon funds. But that is something that we could have a conversation with the chief and the district attorney in regards to trying to restore some of those. As I was sitting here, I was just talking to Representative Golden and asking if we could possibly do something in this year's upcoming budget, but it's just something that we can think of. And I, too, would just like to mention, I know the neighborhood groups are here, but I see Carol McCarthy here from the Sacred Heart Neighborhood Group, and not to single out anybody in particular or slight anybody, but going over to those meetings on a regular basis, I see what Carol does, and I applaud applaud all of these neighborhood groups that are here this evening that want to participate in trying to solve this terrible crime that's taking place here in Lowell.
Representative Golden?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and through you, thank you very much, committee members. I want to just echo the comments of my colleagues. We're here to listen. The city of Lowell is a great city. I think each and every one of us know that. And yeah, we've been getting whacked around a little bit in the last few weeks here. But to the district attorney, I think looking at the positive things that are happening in this city, I think that was very good. And to the district attorney, every time you call him, he's there, he picks up that phone. And publicly, DA, I want to say thank you very much, because anytime I've ever had a question as to what's going on here in the city of Lowell, it's either the DA or actually Mr. Superintendent, you get that phone call. So I want to say thank you to both of you very much. But we're here to listen, and I think, Mr. Chairman, this is the best way to attack this problem. We need to all work together. We are going through very challenging times. There are no question about this. I know that Nikki Songus worked extremely hard with the ARRA funds, bringing here to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We therefore brought them in here to the city, which I know that the chief and the manager and the city council has used some of those funds. The Shannon grants, as my colleague had just mentioned, unbelievably important. And we fight for this every year to try to increase it. Unfortunately, over the last few years, it has been going down because of what's been happening with our budgets. But I think the main key tonight is, and you started here, Mr. Chairman, and both of your colleagues, you started the communication, started the discussion, and I don't think this should be the last time we meet here to make sure that this city moves to where it is. It is a great city. It's a wonderful city. The people here should be applauded for being here, because we're not going to allow these thugs, as you had called them earlier, to run this city, and I want to thank you very much for taking time and putting this together.
Thank you, Representative. Superintendent of Schools, Chris Augustus Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I, too, would like just to express my appreciation both to you, Jerry, and Ken, with regards to working so closely with the schools. Not only are we proactive, as Jerry Leone mentioned, with regards to the various initiatives. I sit on the executive board of Middlesex Community Partnerships with Youth with Jerry, and we really are on the cutting edge of being proactive. The initiatives that are launched throughout the cities and towns. Lowell is at the table coming up with solutions. And after this, not only are we proactive, but when a terrible incident like the one just happened, I think it's important for the community to know that we are all on speed dial. We met first thing Monday morning, Bernie Lynch, Jay Leone, and Ken LaValle and his staff, the school department representatives from the high school as well, and all the first responders who were also to be commended for the great work that they did at the tragic event. So again, we are responsive, reaching out to our families in the school department who have been affected by the most recent events, and we did set up our crisis intervention teams not only at the high school but at other schools where students were either directly or indirectly affected. But again, the professionals involved and working with our community to make sure that our students and their families receive the supports that they need during this critical time is enhanced greatly because of the relationships that we have with the DA's office and with the police department. And that's been long-standing in Lowell. And tonight's meeting is another testament just to how effectively everybody comes together to look at these very serious issues head-on. The school department also had a subcommittee meeting on safety issues scheduled for tomorrow night. There looks like there's a pretty significant storm on the way. So when that happens in the city, the meetings are canceled in the evening, but that will be rescheduled as soon as possible for any of our families who would like to come out in that form and address any issues or concerns. Last night at the high school, we did meet with the Friends of Lowell High and the parents there, and talked about safety issues and answered any concerns the people had. But as Chief LaValle mentioned, we have been keeping very close, a close eye on the situation at the high school and at other schools throughout our system, and things at this point remain calm, and people are focused on the job at hand of teaching and learning, and students do have access, as families do, to resources if people need them. So please don't hesitate to call. If there's anything that we can do as a school department, we are here to serve. But again, I do want to express publicly my appreciation to the city manager and J.R. Leone and Ken LaValle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Brian Martin, representing Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas.
I was, when I walked in, I think the city manager was just explaining that we did meet today, going through all the different grant opportunities that are available, and certainly will exercise our efforts again. And I think over the past several years they have been pretty successful working with the chief and the staff. I actually go to Washington with the chief and go to the different offices with him to help make the case. And I think that our stimulus dollars have been well spent here. And a discussion that I had after I met with the city manager and the chief today, I met with the congresswoman before she left, and one of the things we talked about is that we really are in a situation where we need a long-range plan. And this isn't just Lowell and Lawrence. We have the exact same situation, and I go to Lawrence on behalf of the congresswoman, and we discuss these things, that if you really look at the funding source right now, and the federal government is $4 million something in the budget, over a, say a year and a half or 2 years of a budget cycle, and many of those funds are going to disappear because of the stimulus that expires at the, I believe, the calendar year 2012. So you're in a situation where that is clock is ticking, and you really need to have a plan. And the plan has to, in our opinion, with all of the discussions, and I think I could put my city councilor or city manager's hat on for a minute here and think back of all the years that Senator Donahue spoke about. The front end work is phenomenal. I don't think there's a community in Massachusetts that does the outreach and intervention and the work that this community does. But if you look at the number of police officers that you have, and look at other communities around the Commonwealth, many of them have significantly more officers. And so you need to really collectively look at how do you get there. And back to the number that we had, regardless of state funds or federal funds, to get to that level, to give the chief the tools to fight. I think it's a very, very difficult challenge to have that amount of officers, have people out sick leave, vacations, and be able to provide that kind of service. So I think collectively we need to look local, state, federal, private sector. How do we identify the funds to give the officers, put them on the street? And we can have all of the meetings in the world with all of great people, and if there's no officer walking in a neighborhood, kind of defeating the purpose here. So I think we really need to look at this in the big picture going forward, for not just today, but in the next several years as all the resources get tighter. But we still have to do the job. And I think the Congresswoman has pledges to work with you, work with, again, the federal partners. If, in fact, there are other avenues and other revenue sources, we're ready to work. And we will pursue all of the grants that have been successful here and see if we can ask for emergency funds for this year. We're going to do that with Senator Kerry's office. But we're ready to work on the bigger picture as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Before I recognize my colleague, Councilor Rodney Elliott, I just want to let the audience know there were some people who want to speak, and you will be given that chance. Jim Cook, Tara Mullane Dixon. We will adjourn this meeting at 6:25, because we do have a council meeting to start, and we start those meetings at 6:30. So to be fair with the mayor and the city council, we will adjourn at 6:25. And if those people who get to the podium, if you speak 3 minutes or so, you're going to get your point across, and that will enable an awful lot of other people to speak as well. So, Councilor Elliott.
Well, I will be brief because there are others that want to speak. But I think at the very least, this meeting shows the resolve that this community has to address what has been taking place in the last 10 days. And I think it's important. It is about resources, and you've been here before, Chief. 6 weeks ago, you told us about the gun problem. So getting everybody together, getting the front end, the back end, I've learned a lot tonight, and it is interesting to know that, number one, we have very stringent gun laws, yet on the back end, it seems like the judiciary is almost undercutting the enforcement efforts that it's intended to do by enforcing those gun laws. But more importantly, I have a motion on the council meeting tonight because you have spoken of staff levels, and we do know that resources are short, and they're not going to get, and revenue is not going to get any better. What do we do in the meantime? It's priorities, and the people are here tonight in their neighborhoods. They have sent a strong message. People at home pay their taxes. They want their streets safe. I think we're doing as much as we possibly can, given the circumstances, but it's, quite frankly, it's not enough. And the progress that we have made in the last 10 years, 15 years, I think we have to go back to some of the practices that we had back in '95, and that is community policing. You spoke of being proactive, Chief. I agree. I think one of the tenets of community policing is being proactive. I think that there's a sense of frustration from neighbors, from residents, when they make a call to the police department that this activity is happening and it goes unanswered. I'm not blaming you, Chief. There's only so many calls that your police officers can respond to. So it goes back to staffing levels, goes back to what Brian Martin mentioned, that we have to prioritize this and look at our staffing levels. So, you know, it's budget season coming up in the future. Where are our priorities? And to me, I think we have to put more police officers on the street if we expect the police to respond, if we expect to engage the community and have people at the community police stations that we pay. There has to be a response, and you know, it's cyclical in nature. We want people involved, we want them to report it, but there has to be follow-up. Otherwise, next time around, people are going to say, they're not going to come. I'm not going to report it. So I'm sure we'll continue this dialogue. And I think this meeting sends a very strong message to all corners of the city, to the people at home, that we're going to take back the streets. We're taking back our neighborhoods, street by street, corner by corner, and we're all willing to do it. How we get there, and it clearly is through this collaboration, and we can't do it alone, and people are here to let us know that they're here to help. I know that we were talking about, there's been the discussion to see if we could get, and I'd like to make a motion that the Lowell delegation schedule a meeting with the governor to get the governor involved to discuss this issue and, to have a dialogue pertaining to crime in the city, but as well throughout the state. And it's about resources, I'm sure. So I'll make that in the form of a motion. The chairman, I know, has had some preliminary discussion with members of the delegation, so we'd like to bring that forward to the city council meeting tonight for discussion and approval.
Second. Motion was seconded by Councilor Frankie Dakota. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
3 yeas.
And we're very grateful for the Lowell delegation to try to set a meeting with the governor. And at that meeting, the meeting is for the mayor, the city manager, the police chief, the district attorney, members of the subcommittee, neighborhood leaders, Greg Croto from the UTEC, and members of the Asia community. And I think if we have a meeting with the governor and sit down, not only for this city, but cities throughout the Commonwealth. And now I would like to invite Jim Cook from the Lowell Plan to the podium. And if we keep our comments brief, we can get everybody up there. At 6:25, I promised the clerk we would adjourn, so, Jim.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Milanazzo, members of the City Council, and other distinguished guests that are here tonight. I've had the opportunity of living in Lowell all my life, As you have already heard, I'm the director of the Lowell Plan and also the Lowell Development Financial Corporation. The issue we're discussing tonight, we do not see as a neighborhood problem, but a city problem, and something that also very much affects the business community. We want to pledge our support. I've had some very preliminary discussions with the city manager, with the police chief, and I think you heard a little initiative that the police chief mentioned earlier this evening about something the Lowell Plan could step in and help with. And I'm here tonight to tell you that that's something that we're very much willing to do. We've also invited both the manager and the police chief to a meeting in several weeks with the business community to talk about this problem, to present the bigger picture. We are not going to go away. We want to stay. We want to help. And we think we can bring some significant support to the table to do that. So that's our commitment to this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy Cook, from the Lowell Plan. And I must say that this city is well-known. If we have a problem, we don't sweep it under the carpet. We put it right on the table and address it, and I think that's what we're doing here tonight. Tara?
Mr. Caulfield, could I just invite Mr. Cook? I commend him for being here tonight. I want to invite Mr. Cook to our next Lowell Youth Development Committee meeting, because what's missing there is private industry, and that would be critical. So, Mr. Cook, we'd love to have you at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first Monday of every month at MCC, we've been talking about having private industry at that meeting, and that would be really helpful. Third floor, MCC.
Mr. District Attorney, what time is those meetings? Because I will attend myself.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
You know, every neighborhood leader in the city should be applauded immensely, and this woman has done yeoman service in the Lower Highlands, and you should be applauded for your very hard work.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I can say I'm not alone in this effort, but my name is Taya Dixon-Mullane. I'm the president of the Lower Highlands Neighborhood Group, and I'll try to be as brief as I can, but my comments are a little bit longer than I usually have before you. I'm here tonight with the support of many people and organizations around Lowell who have expressed their support for our neighborhood and the condolences for the victims of the terrible tragedy that occurred on New Year's Day. We've lost another young life to gun violence in the city over the past week and have had 7 others forever impacted by this heinous act. Our neighborhood group was formed in the wake of a murder that occurred at 7-Eleven at the corner of Westford and Chelmsford Streets in 2007. Our neighborhood mourned the loss of a 3rd victim at that same location in 2008. The ensuing 2 years brought additional violence, including gunfire, breaking and entering, and arson. Last summer, another murder on Shaw Street, followed by a double homicide in Couples Square. As 2011 began, we lost another young woman to violence. I'm reminding you of these terrible events so you know that this is something we as a neighborhood deal with year after year and day after day. It doesn't stop there. We have our parks to face with graffiti, needles on our sidewalk, and drug activity on our streets. We live in this community, and 99.9% of us who are simply going about our lives want our neighborhood to be safe. Last week, I received an email from a young woman who grew up in the Lower Highlands, and I wanted to share with you a little of what she said, because I think it represents what a lot of residents feel right now. And I'm quoting, "I haven't felt safe in my parents' neighborhood in years. I had to call 911 on occasion to report gunshots and fights. It's absolutely terrifying. What happened on New Year's Day is so senseless and insane, I can't even understand it." End quote. As a neighborhood group, we've worked hand in hand with the Lowell Police Department. We know its officers, we know its command staff, but how do you stop not only this senseless act on New Year's, but all of them? I don't know how to answer that. We know it's not easy. What we do know, however, is the community doesn't feel safe. So much of our neighborhood is made up of wonderful law-abiding people. They want to live and raise a family here and work in our community. But to do that, we need to be informed, and we need to be part of the solution. I sat down with the city manager yesterday, and we talked about things the city has been doing and intends to do in the future. We are 100% in favor of providing the Lowell Police Department with additional funds. We want to see police in our neighborhood, especially if they're given the resources to interact with the community. If you know the officers personally, you're going to be more likely to seek their help when you need it most. We support the work of the Youth Development Council. Seeking counsel from those who are knowledgeable on the issues is wise. We applaud those efforts. But what we want to see and what needs to happen is engagement with the community. All the good work that is happening could be multiplied 100-fold if information reached the very people that are so trying desperately to help. And we need this effort to be consistent. It cannot wane as the news stories fade. This effort has to continue for years, not weeks or months. It has to transcend language and cultural barriers, neighborhood borders, and social strata. I'm the first to admit that I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to reach that goal. But that doesn't mean we should throw up our hands and say it's too hard. We cannot afford to lose another young person to violence, leave a family in fear of letting their children ride their bikes in the street, or have an elderly resident at home wondering what's happening around them. We need you as a city council, the departments of the city, to reach out to the community. We need your leadership and your expertise to improve our neighborhoods. We want our neighborhoods to be safe. So I'm asking you to consider all that I've said here and seek ways to address crime and violence that is occurring in our city. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street in Lowell, and I'm the president of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group. You've heard the word acre, Centerville, and Lowell Highland thrown around the room all night. First of all, my deepest sympathy to the family that has lost a loved one. I can't even imagine their pain. My congratulations to the Lowell Police Department. Congratulations to all of their good leaders and all of their good officers. And I want to thank all the officials that came here tonight. It's a cold, miserable night out there, and it's going to get worse. And I want to say thank you to all the neighbors that came. Lowell is a good city. We have good neighbors. I think we have a few problems going on, and I believe in the Second Amendment, and that's not what this is about. This is about gun control. I was very happy to hear the DA answer one of my questions. As I recall, there was a law on the books. You got picked up with a gun, you didn't have a license to carry, it was mandatory, and I thought it was 12 months, but you said it 18 months. And I applaud the officers, I applaud the DAs. I think our problem is sitting in a courthouse someplace. Somebody is a little too lenient, or there's a little too many loopholes in the law. I think we need to say thank you for what you've done, but I think Senator Donahue has hit the nail on the head. We have 202 officers. That's not even a cozy, warm feeling. I do remember when we boosted it up to 260. That was a warm, cozy feeling. This isn't. And it's time to circle the wagons. We brought in all the big guns, and you're all sitting here. And we know who's got the biggest wallet. So we are leaning on the federal government to see if we can get some of our police officers back, because we need them. Thank you very much for all your time and all your hard work.
Thank you. David?
Good evening, everybody. How you all doing? My name is David Willett. I'm president of Action, the Acre Coalition. I'm just here, I'll just speak briefly just on the gun issue thing about 9 Dublin Street, that somebody had that many guns in the middle of the acre in an area where we've been having all those problems, and then he left the house and went away. The thing I want to know is I'm not even going to ask for answers right now, I'm just throwing it out there so we could speed it up. Is there a register of gun collectors in the city of Lowell that collect an abundance of guns? And is there a ruling on their storage that there should be a mandated way of storage, so if somebody does get in, it's that much harder to get to those guns? And if somebody leaves on an extended period of time, does he notify the police station of his absence so that they could at least check for their property during their shifts as they go by, because they know if all the guns are in this house, so they know he's on vacation? There should be just somebody, at least let them know, be proactive, the homeowner should. And it should be mandated that any gun collector have an alarm system that notifies the police station when it is compromised, because somebody who has that many guns in their house should be proactive and make sure that he's protecting his property, so that as soon as something happens, the alarm goes off and Chief LaValle goes, ooh, that's a house that has a collection of guns, 40, 50 guns in it, you would be surrounding that house in a minute, compared to another house that just have an alarm system, because we want to keep the guns off these streets. So I just want to say, you have a right to bear arms in this country, but you shouldn't put your neighbors in your neighborhood at risk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and all the honorable guests tonight, and community leaders. I'm Ricky Ong, a former Lowell City Councilor, and also the president of Cambodian Mutual Assistance Association in Lowell. And what happened on the New Year's Eve is shock to all of us. I would like to thank personally the chief here to all the great work from the law enforcement, the mayor, and every leaders in our community who really put the time forward, trying to put thought together to bring peace and prosperity into our community. And I have heard a lot, and I think I don't want to echo the same concern that everyone have spoken tonight. As the leaders in my community, I know this is the issue that everyone had to share, an issue that we lack of more personnel in law enforcement. And but the issue that I want to come forward is we as Cambodian community leaders who showed up tonight, we want to work together with you, and we want to share our concern that we have that we cannot share tonight at this meeting. But we know that it's such an important meeting like Safety First or Lowell Youth Development Committee. It is very important to have a lot of important members from local until state level to hear our concerns. Unfortunately, a lot of our leaders worked at daytime. We cannot attend the meeting. We have a jobs to do. We have a job to taking care of our families. And what we want to have proposed to you is, if you can have sometime evening hours that people can come to hear, that you can hear from us our concerns about what we want to see to happen, about what have happened in our community. We want to be part of it. We spend our time and a lot of energies talking a lot of things, but nothing has been accomplished. Unless we work as a team, unless we work at the bottom level, we're not going to get things done. The problem is at the level, at the bottom level, and we at the top trying to solve problems. It might work at a certain point, a certain issue, but it might not work in every issue that we want to accomplish. Guns is everywhere, and I know the police have worked so hard to get them off from the street. But I think that unless we message out there through our community-based organization, it might not have happened to the parents. A lot of parents who live in these communities, their English is very limited, and unless we work with the various community leaders through different linguistic minorities groups, we're not going to get a message out there. My pledge to you is, from my community, is that we going to work closely with you, and as long as you reach out to us, we promise that we spend out our free time that we have to work closely with you to try to bring, to make the Lowell a better place for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Vritti. At 6:25, I made that announcement probably at 10 minutes to 6. So we have to adjourn. If you want to speak at the subcommittee report meeting, at the council meeting, certainly entertain you then. But before we adjourn, I want to recognize my colleagues, Councilor Bill Martin and Councilor Joseph Mendonça, who are over here to my left, and also school committee member Jackie Doherty. And if I neglected to recognize Connie Martin from the school committee, thank you. But before we adjourn, I want to thank Senator Donohue. I want to thank District Attorney Jerry Leone. I want to thank Brian Martin, Superintendent of Schools Chris Augusta Scott, Representative David Nangle, Representative Tom Golan, and Karen Monahan, who's representing Kevin Murphy. And last but not least, I want to thank Manager Lynch and Chief Lavalley, because they did yeoman service Friday. I met with both of them, and they burned up the telephone lines. And I think this is a very, very good way to start the new year. It's a good meeting. It's a positive meeting. We're looking forward to meeting with the governor and probably bring this forward. And Mr. District Attorney, we're happy that you're our District Attorney working with Superintendent of Police Ken Lavalley. And thank you very much for being here.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Frankie Dakota.
Good meeting. Now you're going to zip us.